the Women's Bond Club co-president, Fran Two-Tone Kapner.
Welcome to the 2013 Women's Bond Club Merit Award Dinner. I am Fran Two-Tone Kapner. I am an executive director in JPMorgan's Corporate and Investment Bank, and I am also co-president of the Women's Bond Club. Tonight, we have a sellout crowd of 800 people. As colleagues, clients, and friends, we represent the diversity of Wall Street. In celebrating the accomplishments of successful women in financial services and also recognizing our future leaders. Before I get on with this evening's events, I would like to take a moment to thank the co-chairs of the board who led this event tonight, Andrea Ianiello and Diane Senti. And I also would like to thank the numerous volunteers that helped us make tonight's event a success. For those of you who may be attending your first event for the WBC, I would like to tell you a little bit about our organization, and it's not just about bonds. We were started in 1921 with a focus on advancing women in finance. There were a lot fewer of us in 1921. 90 years later, we continue to be united by a powerful mission: to advance women's leadership, to grow our talent and intellectual capital, and return worth to our communities. You will hear more about our mission later this evening. The WBC now has over 750 active members that represent close to 40 companies across the financial services industry. This goes from the capital markets to technology companies to our market makers to the front office to the back office to technology to the investment bank, you name it, we cover it. And in accordance with our mission to lead, learn, and return, which I might say is not just a female mission, tonight we are here to recognize our leaders, to learn from their successes, return value to our companies, our community, and future generations. In keeping with our mission, I'd like to ask something of you tonight. Hopefully you will become captivated by the remarks that you hear. I encourage you to listen, to take it as a learning experience. Also, engage in conversation with your dinner companions. Share your success stories, both personal and professional. Jot down one learning experience, which I think will all make us better employees and better citizens tomorrow. Tonight's dinner is also the primary fundraiser for the WBC. And one of the reasons that we are able to allocate such a large portion of tonight's proceeds to our philanthropic activities is because of our sponsor tonight, JPMorgan Chase. Also, many of you here tonight are either clients, employees, competitors of JPMorgan. And you're probably aware that our culture is one that stresses the importance of leadership, collaboration, talent development, especially through mobility opportunities. Tonight's sponsorship would not have happened without the collaboration and support of our senior sponsors at JPMorgan. So please join me in thanking and congratulating Paul Compton, who's our Chief Administrative Officer of JPMorgan Chase, Guy Chiarello, who's our Chief Information Officer, and Pat David, who's our Global Head of Diversity. Thank you, Pat. And now, it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce my colleague and our keynote speaker tonight, Marianne Lake, Chief Financial Officer for JPMorgan Chase.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Women's Bond Club for including me in tonight's event. Excuse me. JPMorgan was one of the initial sponsors of the club, and it's our delight tonight to be able to host this awards dinner. Recognition is a critical part of supporting people in all aspects of both their career and their life, and also supporting the change that they can affect. So I'm very happy to celebrate this year's Merit Awards winners, Lisa Carnoy and Michaela Walsh. As well as this year's 38 Rising Stars, which includes two of our very own, Elena Granovsky-Zislin and Polina Geralt. So I'm especially pleased to be in the company tonight of all of you. And as Fran said, this is a fantastic community of successful women and men in the financial industry. And as she said, I'm in a new role. I became the CFO of JPMorgan Chase at the beginning of this year. And I've worked in finance and the financial services industry all of my career in different companies, countries, and businesses. But when the announcement came out about the CFO role, the outpouring of support and celebration was staggering. It came from all levels internally, from bank tellers, from senior investment bankers, junior associates, all the way up the firm. But it was also significant externally, in and outside of the industry, as well as around the world. And it went beyond the congratulations messages that you would expect to receive, and could probably be best summed up in one email that I received that said, "Congratulations, women everywhere, and men too, are cheering for you." So it made me pause, and it made me reflect on why this had resonated so completely with such a broad set of people. And here are my thoughts. People, and importantly women, want to see real examples of different paths to success and what could be possible for them. They want to be able to relate to people in senior leadership positions, and they want and need more support and help in navigating their careers and their personal lives to be the best that they can be. So tonight, I'm going to touch just briefly on sponsorship, taking risks in your career, and I've taken some, and the value of diversity. So if I look back over my career, I realize a few things. Firstly, on sponsorship. I like to think of myself as being a capable, hardworking person. And it's not just luck that helped me get where I am today. What I realize is that while luck has its part to play, it's much more about the people who sponsored me along the way, both men and women, who invested their time and energy in developing me and providing me with new and challenging opportunities. These are people who were honest with me, sometimes brutally honest with me, gave me exposure, access, and credit, and also put my career and my development oftentimes ahead of their interests. So one good example for me dates back some 5 years or so ago, when my manager at the time said out loud, "Let's work on a plan to make you the CFO of JPMorgan Chase one day." Now, maybe it had no direct impact on the events that just unfolded 5 years later, but it made me think that it was possible because he thought it was possible. And to me, that's what sponsorship is. So secondly, on taking risks and being bold in your career. The very best opportunities I've had have been the ones that required me to take the most risks. Whether it was moving from one great company to another, relocating across the world to Australia, and changing from investment banking to retail banking. And for those of you who know a lot about the banking industry, which you all do, that's a big move. I can't speak for everyone, but I know I can speak for myself and a lot of other senior women that have told me that when they consider taking on a new challenge, they ask themselves, and I ask myself, tough questions. Like, can I really do this job well? You know, will I let anyone down? Is it too much? Is it too hard? Is now the right time? But as Sheryl Sandberg does say, when you find yourself asking these questions, always remember that the guy who's sitting next to you thinks he's totally awesome. And so it's then that I force myself to remember that thoughtful people around me have confidence in me and will support me to be successful. And that helps me put my concerns to one side and just do it. And it's been my experience that going outside of your comfort zone allows you to grow and develop. And each time you do it, it's more than additive, it's exponential. I am also fortunate to work in a firm that, in my experience, really is a meritocracy. But I'm acutely aware that that is not everybody's experience. So I do believe that it's my responsibility, and indeed all of our responsibilities in this room, to hire, develop, promote, and ultimately get more women in senior leadership positions in our firms, across the industry, and beyond. Organizations like the Women's Bond Club and events like tonight are very important. But it's also important that we set the tone and we set the agenda when we get back to our organizations that makes diversity, including women, a priority. So with that, just some final thoughts on diversity. I think it is generally very well recognized that having diversity in an organization improves it in every way. A diverse organization is a better place to work, so it's better for our employees, it's better for our clients and our customers who represent a diverse group of people, and it promotes flexibility and it promotes innovation. And all these things ultimately do drive better results. And that's for broad diversity, but it's true also of women in senior leadership ranks. But unfortunately, women only make up 11% of CFOs, which is dear to my heart, and only 14% of executive positions in Fortune 500 companies. So how do we change that? We need to approach the challenge in a number of different ways, and also, I think, differently at different phases of career development. While I do not hold JPMorgan out as having completely cracked this nut, it is something that we are working very hard at. And so just a few examples. We've created internally communities of diverse groups to help support and promote each other within the organization. We have 175 chapters representing 44,000 employee members. And the networking effect of these chapters is really powerful. And the events that they hold give a broad base of our employees access to senior leaders from across the firm. And as people become more senior, we focus on more targeted one-on-one mentoring, both formally and informally. And having mentored plenty of men and women in my time, and for that matter, having been mentored, I know that being able to talk through problems and challenges and opportunities at a personal level and getting insights and advice that's tailored to your situation is invaluable. And sometimes being a mentor is being that person for someone else that I referred to earlier, who has the confidence in them to give them the push and say, just do it. So it would be remiss of me to leave diversity without acknowledging another challenge, particularly in our industry, which is the challenge around work-life balance. And the question, can we have it all? But I really don't know the answer to that question, because I think it all is a deeply personal concept. But for anyone, it's definitely a challenge. Perhaps more so for women, perhaps not. And it's definitely not easy. Fran mentioned that I'm a single mother with a young boy, and I can attest to the competing priorities. Every single day, we face choices about how to prioritize our work and where to spend our time. And to me, the objective is to prioritize what's important, both inside and outside of work. So it is important that we recognize our role as leaders, managers, mentors, and role models to support everyone in attaining perspective and balance in their life. I was once criticized a few years ago by a great mentor of mine for working too hard, which in my first reaction was, that was ironic, and he was also my boss. But he was dead right when I reflected on it, because around me, the people in my organization had developed into a culture where the norm was working long hours and working through the weekend, because that was the benchmark that I had set for success. So, of course, that wasn't my intention, and I have now made it a point to be clear about what's important to each individual on my team and to the team as a whole, and overtly support them in that. It's a lot about leading by example when you can. So these are some of the things that I've been thinking about over the last 6 months or so, and I certainly don't have the answers, but I do believe with the combined efforts of everyone in this room, in rooms like these, and back in our organizations, we can make a real difference. So I too would like to leave you by ending with a call to action. When you go back to your office, ask yourself, are you personally, are you doing enough to sponsor, develop, and provide opportunities for women in your organization? And that's not just attending functions. If you find yourself falling short on this front, make it a commitment of yours to find at least one person and do that. Because in the end, we make progress one person at a time. So with that, thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Please welcome co-chair of the 2013 Merit Award Dinner, Andrea Iannello.
My name is Andrea Iannello. Welcome. I'm the Vice President of the Women's Bond Club and the co-chair of tonight's dinner, along with Diane Sinti. As Fran noted earlier, this is our annual fundraising event. This event allows us to execute on our mission to lead, learn, and return. You'll hear that a lot tonight. We lead through our work with most of you, our corporate member firms, by sharing best practices to create more productive environments for professional women across the entire spectrum of the financial services community. We learn through our events, which provide intellectually stimulating fora through the exchange of knowledge and ideas. And we return in several different ways. First, through our quite popular Rising Star program, which provides women early in their careers with skills and professional leadership coaching in a supportive environment. We also return through our community service activities. These activities focus on creating more opportunities for young women to get the educations they need and the tools they need to succeed in business. It is this second aspect of returning that brings us to our next speaker. First, I just would like to thank you again for coming tonight and for supporting our mission. I would now like to introduce Myra Sacco. Myra Sacco is a managing director at BNY Mellon. She is a board member of the Women's Bond Club, and she is the chair of our Community Outreach Committee. Myra is going to spend a few minutes talking to you about our philanthropic activities.
Thank you, Andrea. Good evening, everyone. As you heard earlier, part of the Women's Bond Club's mission is to return. We return to our women, our industry, our community. So let me tell you about our philanthropic efforts. Our flagship program, which we've been supporting since 2000, is our scholarship program run by our scholarship committee, where we award college scholarships to young women in high school looking to advance in a career in business and finance. Since its inception, we have awarded 56 scholarships totaling over $930,000. And with this upcoming 6 scholarships that we'll be awarding soon, we're going to cross the 1 million mark, so we're very proud of that. We also need to thank you, as many of you in the room have supported this effort through either becoming a mentor to the girls throughout the 4 years of college organized by our mentoring committee, hiring them as interns, or even offering full-time positions through the efforts of our jobs committee. We are extremely proud of the girls who have gone through the program. We track their successes, and I can tell you there have been many. In addition to the scholarship program, we also have several charitable partners that we work with through our charitable giving committee. Back in 2008, we formed a partnership with the Urban Assembly School of Business for Young Women right here in New York City, a New York City public high school whose mission is to provide a high-quality college preparatory education to young women of diverse backgrounds in a nurturing environment. Over the years, we have given various grants totaling over $80,000 to the fund of college-bound programs or financial literacy. In addition to monetary awards, the Community Outreach Committee supports Urban Assembly through career panels, working with students in college essay editing workshops, and sponsoring a shower for college-bound seniors. In fact, in the room today, I believe we have Principal Minaya from Urban Assembly, and I believe she's here. She can stand up. Thank you for joining us today, Principal Minaya. Always enjoy working with the Urban Assembly School. Reach Out and Read is another charitable partner that our members support directly. Over a third of the children in New York City enter kindergarten without the basic language skills to read. The Reach Out and Read program capitalizes on the trust parents have in their children's pediatricians and the frequent access that the doctors have to their children. Doctors and nurses give books to children 6 months to 5 years of age at their regular checkups and give parents advice on why it's so important to read to their children. Studies have proven that reading aloud to children is the single most effective tool for developing language and literacy. Parents in the program, in fact, are 4 times more likely to read to their children, and those children enter kindergarten with large vocabularies, stronger vocabulary skills and language skills, and a 6-month development edge over their peers. Reach Out and Read reaches over 250,000 children in over 180 locations in New York City, so a broad outreach. In fact, today we have Claudia Aristi, who's representing Reach Out and Read, also in the room. I think you're out there somewhere, Claudia. Thank you also for joining us today. And lastly, we support Dress for Success, whose mission is to advance low-income women's economic and social development and to encourage self-sufficiency through career development and employment retention. We've awarded over $50,000 in grants since 2005 to support a number of their programs around workforce development and coaching, as well as holding suit drives through many of our member events and also sponsoring their annual breakfast. With that, thank you again for being here and supporting all of our valuable causes, and thank you to all the women in the Women's Bond Club for all that you do for the club throughout the year. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the co-chair of the 2013 Merit Award Dinner, Diane Sinty.
Diane Sinty. I'm the director in Deloitte Consulting's financial services practice. I'm also on the board of the Women's Bond Club and co-chair of this evening's event with Andrea. It's my pleasure to be introducing this evening's Isabel Benham Award winner. The Isabel Benham Award is named after one of the Women's Bond Club's founders and is given to a woman who has demonstrated a unique and sustained contribution to the advancement of women. The recipient need not be in financial services. The award includes a $25,000 donation by the Women's Bond Club to the charity of the winner's choice. Isabel Benham was an extraordinary woman, a pioneer who in the early 30s advanced as the expert railroad analyst on Wall Street. Tonight, we are here to present the award in her honor to an extraordinary woman, Michaela Walsh. Michaela is an activist, scholar, mentor, educator, and author. She is aptly described as a pioneer in many of her endeavors. Michaela challenged the gender barrier in financial services in the 60s as the first female to work for Merrill Lynch International in the Beirut and London offices. In the 70s, she became the first female partner of Betcher & Company, a regional brokerage house headquartered in Denver. In 1980, after 5 years spent leading the creation of an international network to bring women entrepreneurs into the formal financial system, she was elected president of Women's World Banking and has remained on the board. Throughout her career, Michaela has maintained a vibrant commitment to education and service. She was adjunct professor at Manhattanville College and director of global student leadership programs. Board appointments have included Synergos Institute, an independent nonprofit dedicated to developing effective, sustainable, and locally based solutions to global poverty, and the UN Theological Seminary. She was appointed chairperson of the 59th UN Department of Public Information NGO Conference in 2006. Michaela is the recipient of NOW's New York City Women of Vision Award and the UN Paul G. Hoffman Award for Outstanding Work in Development. And in 2012, she wasn't done. She was honored by the Women's Funding Network for changing the face of philanthropy. Michaela's new book, Founding a Moment, Women's World Banking 1975 to 1990, is a social history capturing the real voices of the innovators who defined the beginning of the global movement towards financial empowerment of women, and has renewed global interest in working with and learning from women entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to welcome Michaela Walsh and present her with the Women's Bond Club 2013 Isabel Benham Award.
I'm too old for this. I'm so deeply honored, I really don't even know how to start this evening, but I just can't help but to comment on the fact that we are in the whale room. And if this had been 50 years ago, when I first came into this industry that you all are now carrying us forward in, and we had an evening like this, we would be lucky if we had had one table of women and not as 800 people. So I really applaud all the Bond Club for what they have accomplished. And when I set out on this venture of mine into an industry, it was a very different world. But in 1957, I came to New York to work for Merrill. It was then Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith. Merrill Lynch, first Merrill Lynch, first Fenner and Bean, then Merrill Lynch, first Fenner and Smith. It was a very tight partnership. And I can't help but to think that I often think that Wall Street is pretty much in the same way, a pretty tight partnership. But then I look at this room filled with women, and it may be a partnership, but it's going to be a very different one than it was when I started. I came to New York from Kansas City. I went to Wall Street because that's where the men and the money were. I was without a college degree. I was determined to be a part of that scene. And I had a roommate who was a dear friend from Kansas City. Her daughter is now a member of your club, Catherine Campbell from MetLife, and I think she's here tonight up there somewhere. Believe me, our careers were a lot different in those days. Just imagine the New York Stock Exchange used to have 300,000 share trades in a day. Imagine, and every order had to be entered manually. I went to night school to the New York Stock, the Institute of Finance, so that I could get registered, so that I could legally enter clients' orders. We didn't have mutual funds in those days. And that was in 1957. In 1960, Merrill Lynch International was deciding to open up an office in Beirut, Lebanon. And I had to go on the map and look and see where it was. Some of the staff who were going there wanted me to go with them. And being a learner, I got very excited. And But the personnel department, it was then personnel department, now not human resource, thought that it was too dangerous to send women overseas. Can you imagine if somebody told you that today? I mean, it just... Anyway, so I quit my job, paid my own way to Beirut, Lebanon, and was hired by Merrill Lynch International. Thank you. It did not take me long to open the operations manual and figure out how to help run an office with no training. But I learned that the American way was not the only way of doing things. Most important, I learned to work and play with people from around the world. In 1965, with some serious operational experience under my belt, I transferred to London to train some personnel for their first office there for a year and a half. And then I came back to New York. And Merrill Lynch would not allow women to become sales representatives. So on the advice of my former boss, I left Merrill Lynch. I joined Citi Associates, which was the second hedge fund set up on Wall Street. 2 years after that, I was tapped by Betcher to set up and run their New York office. When they were going to start trading the very first mutual fund on the New York Stock Exchange. I went back to school and finished my undergraduate or my bachelor's degree at Hunter College and became the first woman partner of Betcher & Company the same year that Muriel Siebert started her firm. While working, I had maintained a parallel experience volunteering with the Junior League, helping prepare drug-addicted students pass their equivalency tests in a community college on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I began to question the split between what I felt about what I did during the day and what I did after work. Did I want to stay working just to make money so others could make more money? Then one day, a partner asked me to accept a trade or some trades that forced me to come to terms with the moral implications of what I was asked to do. With enormous pain, believe me, and great fear, and somebody asked me today of whether these things were fearful. But with lots of courage, for sure, I left Wall Street, and I spent the rest of the summer on the beach in Long Island. That summer, out of the blue, a woman I had known during my volunteer work called to ask if I would be interested in speaking with a foundation that was looking for someone. So we met at the Rainbow Room in the Rockefeller Center, and 3 months later, I ended up at the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. I had been there 2 eye-opening and new world years. Believe me, they were new world. When President Bill Deedle suggested that I go to Mexico City for a women's conference. That was in 1975, the first United Nations Conference for Women. Believe it or not, I was the only Wall Street woman present. I was stunned by the remarkable women, 75,000 strong. Northern women, I learned, wanted equality with men. But most women, particularly from the South, spoke about having no access to the formal economy. I became preoccupied with how could a developing country develop if 50% of the workforce had no access to any capital or credit, the tools of production? Or how could women not have some ownership over their own production and their own reproduction? The idea about how a new global financing mechanism for women was floated for the first time during that meeting. And I assure you, it changed my life forever. From then on, I had no doubts about where I was going or what I was doing. 5 years later, after working with UN Women to help find the solution to the problems in 1980, I was elected the founding president of Women's World Banking. Now, in summary, we were a group of women from around the world who had not known each other or how business was done in each of our countries. We set out to create something new by women, based on women's needs, worked hard, and we played very hard. We avoided building a hierarchy, rather a network. We held global meetings every 2 years to create policies that everyone endorsed. Rather, people would say, "You can't hold those meetings, you don't have the money." I always knew we would find the money. The advantage you all now know that we didn't have at the time was no one person has all the answers. Last year, I completed this 4-year self-funded effort of collecting all the words of those who worked together in order to capture the story of the founding of the movement that changed the lives of millions of women. It's not my story. 100 other people were involved in those first 10 years, and they are all quoted in this book. I can only thank the people from Women's World Banking who are here and who work around the world today of keeping a dream alive for many people around the world, where 28 million women so far have direct access to the formal economies of their own countries. The first effort taught me a great deal that I had not known. Most important, I learned about myself from many of the reflections and about my own determination. I realized how often I had to stand up to people who said, "You can't do that," and also who I had to stand up to. In hindsight, I finally realized how I was affected by having courage and taking the risks I did, and I have no regrets for them. I wish I had time to read a couple of the excerpts from some of the interviews, but I just will say that taking risks to create something new, sharing information and control, being at the design table and not being seated after the fact, provides lots of options we do not know or expect. It changes the playing field. And from what I heard tonight, you all are experiencing that in ways that I did not when I was your age. But what message do I want to share with you that would connect with Isabel Benham, who was a real, what we say now, glass ceiling breaker? It all comes down to getting a seat at the table. If you aren't there at the design phase, it's too late. You don't have to be experts. You learn by sitting at the table. Some people say we could not do what we did in today's environment since numbers are so much more important than they were 40 years ago. Maybe so. But we are also in a new era of understanding diversity. Most importantly, women's voices around the globe. Your voices are now becoming the new leaders. So who is a leader? Leaders create other leaders. They don't create followers. To be a leader, someone with a seat at the table. As one of my valued friends suggests, read this book. Get in the fray. Trust your networks. Look beyond. Do what makes you connected with your feelings first. Don't stay somewhere first just to make money. Define courage. Write it down. Define it for yourself. My definition of courage has always meant connecting my passion with my pragmatism and the experiences and taking a risk. And that's not always easy for a lot of other people. Think beyond today and pay it forward. In closing, I would kind of quote from George Saunders, who says, "Be confused, stay confused, stay open, and keep staying open until it hurts." But women must be at the table going future. And Isabel Benham, thank you. Thank you, Bond Club, and God bless you all. Thank you.